The Gypsy Girl, written by Val Wood, read by Anne Dover. The moral right of the author has been asserted. Part 1. Chapter 1. The boy pulled the thin blanket closer to his body and shuffled deeper into the corner by the gate. A cold, damp mist was descending, drifting in from the river and settling with vaporous fingers in every corner of the town. Jonty shivered. You could always tell when it was Hull Fair time. The weather always told. Rarely in that festive week did the autumn show itself in crisp, golden colours, when the entertainers, the sellers of good fortune, "Only a penny to change your look," the cheapjacks with their golden rings and the itinerant horse traders descended on the town, but it drizzled with wet, murky rain which chilled the bones and soaked thin boots, and yet did nothing to dispel the enthusiasm which the townspeople felt towards the most important annual event in their dreary lives. But now the fair was over for another year. During each of the last 2 nights, Jonty had heard the clop of hoofbeats as carts and wagons pulled the cages of wild animals, the dancing dogs and the freaks of nature out of the town towards a resting place for the winter, where wagons and booths would be repaired and painted, money would be counted, and new ideas thought up for the following year, for the ancient Hull Fair was the last big fair of the year. He stirred on the hard stone of the yard as he heard the sound of wooden wheels and recognised the vibrating wobble of old Boney's cart as it trundled with a lopsided pitch on the cobbled stones of Whitefriar Gate towards the workhouse. He raised himself and moved with swift yet awkward step to peer through the hole in the gate. It was old Boney, and his cart was laden, piled high with sacks and bundles. Whether it was old clothing and rags, bits of metal, firewood, or a cask of smuggled spirit for the master, Jonty couldn't tell, for the lamp outside the gate had gone out, and the street was shrouded in darkness. He reached for a stick, kept for the purpose, and knocked back the bolt at the top of the gate, then bent to do the same at the bottom, and swung open the gate to admit the laden cart and its driver. "Shut gate! I'm not going out again, and fetch master. Look sharp about it." The instructions were terse, but no more so than Jonty expected. In all of his 7 years, he had been at everyone's beck and call and expected nothing else. But old Boney never cuffed him, as most other adults did. "Master's out. Matron's in," he volunteered reluctantly. He didn't speak unless it was absolutely necessary, for very few people understood him. "Fetch her, then. Wake her up if needs be." Jonty ran. He moved swiftly in spite of his shortened leg and bent back, and could outrun all of the other children in the workhouse. He had to keep out of trouble. Some of them, he had decided, were jealous of his special privileges. He didn't have to sleep in the overcrowded dormitories as they did, though he could share a bed if he wanted to. He could sleep in the wood store, where he stacked the wood for the stove. He could sleep in the old hayloft, which was warm, but had much company of rats and mice. Or he could sleep outside in the yard, which he preferred to the damp and stinking building, and listen to the sounds of the night. He had the run of the whole of the old decrepit building. He knew every loose window and unlocked door, and could creep into the kitchen and warm himself on a winter's night. He was small enough, too, to climb through the larder window, though there was little food left about on the stone shelves, save an odd crust or a bowl of gruel. What food there was locked away in the cupboards, and he had to be careful that the food he was taking wasn't meant for the cook's own consumption. He climbed the creaking stairs, approached the door next to the girls' dormitory, and tapped gingerly. "Mrs. Fincher?" he spluttered. He put his ear to the door and heard the snoring and knocked again a little harder, but not too hard to waken her too hastily, or she would be in an ill humour. There was a sudden snort, and he knocked again. "Mrs. Fincher?" he repeated, and took a deep breath to form the words. "Come! Old Boney's here!" He heard the shuffling of slippers on the floorboards, and the door opened a crack. He blinked.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?